listeners, welcome to Payment Matters. I'm your host, Jeff Lin. Thanks for tuning in today. On the show, we talk about the ever-changing landscape of healthcare payments and the impacts to healthcare payers, providers, and consumers. You can follow the conversation on Twitter at #PaymentMatters and follow me at Jeff B. Lin. Today is a special and great episode. We're talking about the InstaMed Healthcare Payments Summit. The InstaMed Healthcare Payments Summit welcomes payers, providers, and healthcare IT systems of all sizes from across the country to attend this really special 3-day conference. The goal of the conference is to foster discussions and collaborations across the entire spectrum of healthcare stakeholders to really improve the convenience, efficiency, and really security of healthcare payments. Here with us today to tell us everything you need to know about the InstaMed Healthcare Payments Summit are a few really special guests. I'm joined by Deirdre Ruddle, Vice President of Strategy here at InstaMed, Meg McDonald, Senior Marketing Manager and Head of InstaMed Events and Conferences, and Bill Che and Polina Goncharova from Obility, who were speakers and attendees at last year's summit. Thank you all for joining me today. We'll start off today with the first question to Deirdre. What is the mission of the InstaMed Healthcare Payments Summit?
Sure, thanks, Jeff. So the InstaMed Healthcare Payments Summit is actually a new name for the conference. Historically, we've referenced it as the InstaMed User Conference, and what we've found is the conference has grown and we've gotten feedback from so many attendees and so many different types of attendees, whether they're providers, payers, healthcare IT vendors, or even the perspective of all of us as consumers of healthcare in America today. We expanded the name to say Healthcare Payments Summit because this is really bigger than InstaMed. This is bigger than thinking about the solutions that we're bringing to the market. And this is really about that conversation that needs to be happening about healthcare payments across all of those stakeholders and the meaningful connections, insights, and innovations that can come out of those discussions and that collaboration.
So it's a really unique conference in the fact that there's a broad spectrum of stakeholders coming to this conference. For the listeners out there, what can they expect from this year's summit?
Sure. So this year's Healthcare Payments Summit will be the biggest conference we've had. Last year we sold out well before the conference, and I expect that that will happen again. And really, I believe the reason that it does sell out and that there is so much interest is that the content is really meaningful. And we have speakers that are coming from some of the nation's largest health systems and hospitals, as well as payers, and then provider organizations of all different sizes and specialties. And they're telling their stories. They're telling, they're talking about what they're seeing happening within their organizations, within their lenses of how they approach the healthcare payments life cycle. And it's really about hearing what changes can be made, what challenges are organizations facing, how can we think differently about things. Additionally, we have a lot of hands-on activities, throughout the conference. We certainly have some fun social things, but then we have our innovation labs where our attendees can really get a sense of what's next, what's coming from InstaMed, and what ultimately is going to impact the industry next. And those demonstrations are a combination of interactive demos as well as short presentations that are done by the people who are actually developing the software. And so people really enjoy the chance to learn, right from the head of development, right from the head of innovation at InstaMed about what's going on, what's coming next, and really imagine what those innovations could look like in their organizations and ask those questions. And then finally, we've got two great keynote speakers from Shark Tank, Robert Herjavec and then David Horsager from the Trust Edge Leadership Institute. They're both amazing speakers and will really bring some interesting perspective to what we're doing in healthcare, and also some fun to things too.
Great. Thanks, Deirdre. And as we talk about this event and really all the great activities and events going on there, really would love to hear from Bill and Polina as attendees last year. And you beyond attendees, you actually spoke at last year's event, and would love to understand your perspectives and viewpoints in terms of how was your experience last year.
Well, thanks, Jeff. I personally found it exciting to share what we had learned. It's kind of like Deirdre had stated, we were telling our story and about what we had put into place by partnering with InstaMed. For me, it also was a full circle moment from attending the conference from my first year, that was the previous year. I think it really speaks to what anyone can learn and apply from attending the summit.
And myself, I've never spoken in front of such an audience, so being invited was truly an honor and a bit nerve-wracking. Naturally. The staff at InstaMed was so supportive and helpful in putting together our presentation, providing us feedback, and they made us feel like very important presenters. Mm-hmm. And one of the unique aspects of the summit is that real people like us doing real work are presenting. They come from large, small providers, payer systems, and there's a real, true opportunity to learn from each aspect of those businesses. We're a small DME provider here in Chicagoland area with a national billing presence, and we found our story. We found success alongside InstaMed and our unique use of technology in upfront payment collection. So to share that with such a diverse crowd and also get fascination and engagement was truly rewarding, but also in some aspects challenging. Challenging because they brought up thoughts and questions that we hadn't considered about what we did. So that really reinforced that what we're doing on a small scale is truly important in the grand scheme of patient engagement, education, and payments.
Yeah, that's great, and love to hear. And it sounds like you had a lot of great attendee engagement as speakers at last year's event. And a lot of times when I go to conferences and so on, it's all about the interactions that you had, or things that you may have learned that you may not have been experienced before. Would love to were there any highlights or any things as a speaker that you thought was, wow, this was an incredibly useful thing that I learned that by attending this event? Any highlights there?
I would say, one of the things that I think we learned as speakers is going through the information that we really wanted to convey and make sure that people understood. We learned where, to be honest, some of the things that we needed to do better, and some of the things that we realized that we were working on or we were ahead of the game. So it gave us kind of this full picture of where we have been, where we are, and where we're going.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It kind of put us in perspective. Again, we're a smaller player in this grand scheme. So it was kind of great to compare ourselves, even as a speaker, to other speakers, to see what they're doing and how we can take ourselves to the next level like they are as well. So again, it's a level of education. we're on one area and we learn from the others as well. So there's a lot to take away.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, and thanks for sharing that, because it's always important for everyone to be attending, especially the speakers, to make sure they learnings are available across the board. And we're at the halfway point. Just real quick, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Payment Matters. I'm joined by a panel of guests, and we're discussing the InstaMed Healthcare Payments Summit, which is coming up March 25th through the 27th next year, 2019. And so, as going back to Bill and Polina, as we look at this, you also have the experience of attending the conference as attendees, beyond just being a speaker. And I'm gonna focus on, really focusing about the experience you had as attendees. What were some major takeaways or really highlights for you as attendees?
I would say my biggest takeaway came from the first year, and it has continued to evolve into the second year that I've been there. We attended the first year looking for a way to take payments up front and have transparent conversations with our patients. My biggest takeaway really came from, I believe it was you, Jeff, you were speaking to the crowd, or to the attendees, and you stated, every time we speak to a patient, it's an opportunity to take a payment. It rings true. And you look, you move forward a year, and we took that takeaway, added in technology, worked on educating our patients, and it truly was, it's a full circle thing where you look at what you were able to gain and how you're able to evolve it through, through your business.
And for me, I have two major takeaways. I think being reminded about the important measurables or KPIs within our industry. We tend to get lost in our day-to-day and our jobs and our tasks, that we forget to take a step back and look at the big picture. How are we measuring up compared to others in a similar industry? One of the speakers was also a finance person as myself, and it was just really cool to see because this role was new to me, so I don't have any other experience to relate it to. So to see somebody within a similar role as mine, what are they doing to measure their success? How can I do the same? And oh my gosh, I need to go back and do those things too and see how I'm growing, was a really huge takeaway as a speaker and as a participant. And speaking of that diverse crowd of professionals, one that stuck out to me, and I still remember it very clearly, was one of your speakers was a plastic surgeon, and he created a price estimation tool that everyone can access while also gathering leads at the same time. So the cost transparency gave patients the info they needed, when they needed it, and it built trust so they knew what they were going to get. So, and second, it was a business growth tool to generate business for the surgeon. So that's something we don't look at a lot, using the web to give transparent pricing tools while building trust for a patient, building engagement, and generating business. I thought those were some of the greatest takeaways I had.
Got it. And we have a philosophy at InstaMed, which is really work hard and play hard, right? And sometimes we forget about the play hard, but we want to make sure we strike that balance. To Bill and Polina, was it fun? Did you have a good time?
Oh yeah, we had a blast. We had a blast.
Yeah.
No, I think it was really important. As I said, it was the first time for me, and I said to myself, I'm going to do this. This is going to be a huge step in personal development and educating others about what I do. So although it was a little bit nerve-wracking, the bottom line is it was fun, and I did it. So I truly encourage people to get involved if you're in the business.
And that's great to hear, because we also want to have a great time and really kind of, we call it cherish our customers and partners that can attend, because there's really a lot to learn across all the stakeholders. Thank you, Bill and Polina. Meg, to you, so there's a lot, and clearly this is an important conference in the industry. What should people know about the conference?
Well, thanks, Jeff. Just to go through some of the points that have already been mentioned, but again, the dates are March 25th through the 27th, and the conference will take place in Philadelphia at the historical Warwick Hotel, which is located in the heart of the city. Our summit is 2.5 days in length, and we have a jam-packed agenda. It starts with some pre-summit workshops, followed by a welcome reception for all attendees, which is held at the Warwick Hotel. We start off Tuesday with a full day of educational sessions that begin with an opening keynote address, as Deirdre has mentioned, from Robert Herjavec, CEO of the Herjavec Group and star of ABC's Shark Tank. And then Tuesday concludes educational sessions. Attendees have the opportunity to take a historical sightseeing tour through Philadelphia before attending our InstaMed Network Bash, which is held at the famous Reading Terminal Market. Attendees will have the opportunity to network with all of their other partners and while enjoying cuisine that Philadelphia is known for. And then Wednesday, we have a half-day agenda where the attendees will hear the latest data from healthcare payment or healthcare trends, followed by a closing keynote presentation by David Horsager, the founder of Trust Edge Leadership Institute. And it's a lot of fun, as Bill and Polina have mentioned, and they were a pleasure to work with last year.
That's great. And clearly it's in Philadelphia, as you alluded to, especially, and love the food at the Reading Terminal Market. And a really special bash there. But how can people get there?
Great question, Jeff. Again, we talked about the dates, March 25th through the 27th at the Warwick Hotel. But for everyone to register and all the information that they need to know, they can visit our registration link, which is www.instamed.com/HPS. And then from there, you'll find the registration form as well as a link regarding hotel accommodations and location, a justification letter to submit to bosses from an expense standpoint and budgeting, and as well as additional questions on who to contact regarding registration or any special requirements. And then we also highlight our speakers, and we'll continue to update the agenda throughout the balance of 2018 and into early 2019 as we confirm our sessions and move forward. So that registration link is really a core source of information for everyone to visit regarding anything around our Healthcare Payments Summit.
That's great. And thank you, Meg, for that information. Definitely more available online with the URL that Meg referenced. I'm going to go back to actually Bill and Polina and ask, just a high-level question here, which is clearly there's a lot of healthcare conferences, and I imagine you've been to others in the past. How would you compare and contrast your experiences with our conference as an attendee or speaker, it doesn't matter, versus those other conferences that you potentially have been to, and kind of how would you compare and contrast these conferences?
I would say the InstaMed Summit conference gave a feel of closeness to the group that was participating. It wasn't so big that you're lost in the space. The breakout sessions and the social gatherings really allowed you to connect with the InstaMed staff, with others in the same industry. So it gave a real personalized or personable aspect to it, where you felt like you were a part of something, rather than being at an enormous conference where you're lost, not knowing where to go next. So I felt like a human, and I felt like I could connect with those in the same industry, and it was just a really open and comfortable experience.
Yeah, and I'll agree with Polina on that. You feel at home, in my opinion, there. Everyone in InstaMed, is great to work with. In addition to that, your conference and summit is well put together, and truly you balance between the informational, educational portion of it, and then we have a good time in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. And that unique personal experience is always what we strive for, right? Going to those gigantic conferences where you're just a number is really not the goal, right? That is the let me ask this to Deirdre as other potential attendees are contemplating the Healthcare Payments Summit and coming to this conference. What else do you think should be highlighted as why should they look at this conference over other conferences? Anything you can highlight?
Sure. So I think that one of the major differences about this conference is that many of the conferences that are in the industry are really focused on one specific segment, whether it's providers and a certain size of a provider or payers, and even within there, a certain size of payers. And the difference with the InstaMed Healthcare Payments Summit is that we're really bringing all these groups together, and we really want to foster conversation among all of these stakeholders, because in order for healthcare payments to reach the next level of a better experience, greater efficiency, and overall improved satisfaction, these groups have to come together. So one of my favorite things at the conference is to see providers talking to payers and payers asking providers questions about what their organizations are thinking about, what their patients are thinking about. And on the flip side, providers asking the same questions back to payers, asking them how they're tackling the member experience, how they're tackling the surge in high deductible health plans and other hot button issues that impact the prioritization that's happening within both provider and payer organizations.
Right. Thank you so much, Deirdre. One last question. I'm gonna go back to Bill and Polina here, which is our listeners today. Some may or may not be involved in the healthcare environment, and so terms such as DME may not resonate with them. Could you talk a little about Ability and what you do, and really kind of what are the key value things that you bring into the healthcare payment ecosystem?
At Ability, one of the things that we've really focused on is truly being a partner with whoever we are serving, whether it be the patient, the doctor, the clinic. We're a small durable medical equipment company that provides orthopedic bracing. We also have other solutions such as stock and bill. We offer nationwide billing, and we've even integrated technology to teach you how to educate your patients using the information that is provided through that technology. So it really is, Ability truly is a partnership in motion that, we want to work with not just the doctor, but the patient through the continuum of care.
Right. The patient experience, what we found, has been so broken and siloed. Patients are lost in the mix of healthcare. They go to a surgeon, they go to another provider. How do we help that patient through that continuation of care smoothly, and how do we help them transition while also knowing what they're going to expect financially and also within their care? So we really wanted to focus on the education, the transparency, and as Bill said, partnering with our referring providers, the patients, to really have a continuum of care. It's a smooth experience.
Yeah, because I think the one thing that we've noticed through our evolution, I guess is the best way to put it, is that a patient's financial well-being can really dictate how they take care of themselves. So if we are educating a patient and working with them throughout their continuum of care, they're more likely to trust us and go back to that, that physician, that clinic, and even ourselves.
Great. And it sounds like a really, really, really positive value for many parties here. if our listeners wanted to find out more about Ability, what's the best way for them to find you?
Certainly. Well, there's a couple ways. They can visit our website at obilitymedical.com. That's OBILITY medical.com. On Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Obility Medical. And those are the best ways to get a hold of us.
Great.
We're
Great.
happy to connect and help others through the journey.
Yeah, for sure.
Great. And you know, great speakers and it sounds like a great product as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. And back to Meg here for a bit. You know, Bill and Polina were gracious enough to join us today to talk about their experiences as speakers and attendees. If you know, and clearly would love to understand how do people become a speaker at our Healthcare Payments Summit?
Thanks, Jeff. That's a great question. And as we've talked to Bill and Polina, who were wonderful presenters last year and such a pleasure to work with. Anyone that is interested in submitting a speaking submission for the Healthcare Payment Summit can find all the information on our registration link, as I mentioned, which is www.instamed.com/HPS. And they can submit their headshot, bio, proposed speaking session, 150-word summary, and then 3 to 5 learning objectives. And the deadline to submit is December 14th.
And thank you, Megan. And to all the listeners out there, really looking forward to, if you have an idea that could really help all stakeholders or something unique that you're doing within your own business, whether it's any business, as you can imagine, this applies through all stakeholders, would love to hear from you. I think the value in the summit is the collaboration and the connection that we have in building this really healthcare payment network. And we'd love to hear you. And once again, I want to thank my guests today, Deirdre Ruddle, Meg, Bill, and Polina. It's been really a pleasure to have you today. And I'll just reiterate what Meg and others have said. We'd love to have you here to the InstaMed Healthcare Payments Summit. InstaMed.com/HPS. That's the way to reach out and kind of learn more about this conference. And thank you to all the listeners for listening in today. Remember that you can listen in to this episode weekdays at 4:30 a.m., 12:30 p.m., and 8:30 p.m. Eastern. If you have a comment about this episode or the show, follow #PaymentMatters or connect with me on Twitter at Jeff B. You can learn more about my show at healthcarenowradio.com or instamed.com. Until next time, I'm Jeff Lin.